siblings in faith. I want to begin by wishing each and every one of you Imamat Day Mubarak. As we prepare to celebrate this auspicious occasion and express our shukrana and gratitude for this immense blessing and barakat of having a hazir and mawjood, a present and living imam to whom we can turn in times of uncertainty and happiness, I invite you to spend a few moments with me to reflect upon what this means for us in the context of the world in which we are living today. As we navigate these times of uncertainty and we witness the pain and sorrow of many around us, it's natural that we might find ourselves experiencing feelings of discomfort. After all, how could we not, for as the Imam has often reminded us, does the Holy Quran not say that mankind is descended from a single soul? So this pain and suffering that we are witnessing, that we might be experiencing, is collective in its nature. We can't help but feel it. And so as we ask ourselves these important questions of how we should respond, how can we ease the discomfort of those around us, of ourselves, of our fellow human beings, we turn towards the Imam of the time, for it is he who guides us and provides us with a framework for action. Hazrat Imam referred to such a framework in the Stephen Ogden lecture that he gave in 2014, where he said, in an increasingly cosmopolitan world, it is essential that we live by a cosmopolitan ethic, one that addresses the age-old need to balance the particular and the universal, to honor both human rights and social duties, to advance personal freedom, and to accept human responsibility. These ideas of human rights, social responsibility, of a universal cosmopolitan ethic, these are not some ideas that are something new to us or to our faith. Over the course of our 1400 plus years of history, the Imams have provided guidance for us both through their words and their actions, through their lived example of how we too can implement these values of our faith. So let us take a few moments to examine a few examples from the Quran and our history of how these values of social justice, human dignity, and social responsibility are rooted in our faith. I would like to begin with a small surah from the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'un, the small kindness, where Allah says to us, "Hast thou not seen the one who denies religion? That is the one who drives away the orphan and does not urge feeding the indigent? So woe unto the praying who are heedless of their prayers, those who strive to be seen yet refuse the small kindness." Essentially, what good are acts of piety without good works? There is a hadith where it is related that Prophet Muhammad once said, "Anyone who looks after and works for a widow and a poor person is like a warrior fighting for Allah's cause, or like a person who fasts during the day and prays all night." Let's look at the weight that is given to these good works, the sawab, the reward that is attached to these good works, these good acts. If we move forward to the example of our first Imam, Imam Ali, there are so many beautiful examples from his life of upholding these ideals of social justice, of his example of leadership. There's an example in Najhul Balagha of a letter that Imam Ali wrote to Malik al-Ashtar when he appointed him as governor. And in this letter, Imam Ali provides Malik with some guidance on how to be a fair and equitable and a just ruler, and lays out some principles as guidance for him to follow. And in there's a paragraph where Imam Ali says, "You must always appreciate and adapt a policy which is based upon equity and justice. Remember, the disapproval and displeasure of common men, have-nots, and depressed persons more than overbalances the approval of important persons. The common men, the poor, are the pillars of Islam. They are the real assemblage. Keep an open mind for them." In Reza Shah Kazemi's book, Justice and Remembrance, there is a beautiful story that is shared of how Imam Ali himself lived these ideals and values as an example. There's a story where Imam Ali is walking through the town and he encounters a poor, blind, old man who is begging for alms. And he asks the people around in the vicinity about this old man and why he's begging, and he's told that, oh, he's a Christian. And so in response, Imam Ali tells the people that are there, you have employed him, this man, the beggar, you have employed him to the point where he is old and infirm, and now you refuse to help him. Give him maintenance from the public funds, the Bayt al-Mal. And so the key point here again is the demonstration of these Islamic principles of social justice, the equitable distribution of wealth, of communal wealth, and this establishment of a communal fund to look after those who are marginalized, who cannot care for themselves. And again, this really important notion of access. Who has access to these resources? Not discriminating based on religion or creed, right? Equal access for those who need it. And so if we look over the course of our history, our imams have established resources and institutions, formal and informal, to serve the Jamaat and the communities where they reside. And so today, in today's context, one of these avenues through which this work continues and is being undertaken is the AKDN. And what's important is that we pay attention to the way that the Imam himself talks about the work that is being undertaken by his institutions. Hazar Imam, during his acceptance speech when he received the Tolerance Award at the Tutsing Academy, says, "I am fascinated and somewhat frustrated when representatives of the Western world try to describe the work of our Aga Khan Development Network, reflecting a certain tendency of the West to separate the secular from the religious. They often describe it either as philanthropy or entrepreneurship. What is not understood is that this work for us is a part of our institutional responsibility. It flows from the mandate of the office of the Imam to improve the quality of worldly life for the concerned communities. What we want to note there is how the Imam views the work being undertaken. Philanthropy, by definition, implies a choice. Whereas here, one could infer from the Imam's words that the work being undertaken by the Imam as part of his mandate is something that is sacred, directly stemming from the core principles and teachings of our faith. And this is a common thread that we have seen through some of the examples that we've reflected upon today together, but also over the course of our history. The central point here, my dear siblings in faith, is that social justice, human dignity, standing up for equality, addressing inequities, these have all been central tenets of our faith right from its very inception. The Imams have continued to uphold these core values and view them as a key part of their mandate. And it is through their lived examples that they show us how we too can be part of fulfilling this sacred mandate through lived ethics, or as the Imam referenced in the Stephen Ogden speech, a cosmopolitan ethical framework. So in the same vein, as we reflect on these ideas of social justice and the Imam, and all of this within the context of Imamat, a perspective through which we can perhaps think about this in simpler terms is, if a Muslim is one who submits to Allah, then the question is, how do we submit? What does submission look like? And perhaps the simplest answer could be by serving his creation, which by default then includes social justice, upholding human dignity, dismantling oppression, finding ways to fight inequity and injustice wherever we encounter it, and holding ourselves accountable to these values. The Imam illuminates for us not just through his words, but also his own example of how to live a life of spiritual coherence and how to uphold these values. So as we celebrate this auspicious occasion of Imamat Day, and we give thanks for this immense blessing and barakat of this passion and unconditional love that we have from our spiritual Father to us, his spiritual children. Let us reflect on how we can, at the individual level, uphold these values of social justice, human dignity, equality, how we can work to alleviate the inequities and suffering that we encounter wherever we encounter them. Let us stand in solidarity as global citizens united by a cosmopolitan ethic inspired by our beloved Imam's example, so that we may uphold the central tenets of our faith. I wish you much peace, love, and barakat. Imamat Day Mubarak.